What if I told you that Jesus' power extends over every storm, every demon, and even death itself? As we continue in Mark 4 and 5, we see Jesus calm a raging sea, cast out a legion of demons, heal a woman who had suffered for years, and even bring a girl back to life. These stories reveal not just Jesus' authority, but also his deep compassion. Let's dive into these powerful moments and see what they mean for us today. Welcome back to By Grace Through Faith. I'm your host, Bree. Today we're going to be continuing in Mark 4, and then we're going to also jump into Mark 5. We're going to talk about a couple of stories where Jesus does a couple of miracles, and we're going to go ahead and jump into Mark 4, starting at verse 35, and we're going to finish up the chapter. This is where Jesus calms the storm. And the verse reads, "As evening came, Jesus came to his disciples. Let's cross to the other side of the lake." So they took Jesus in the boat and started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats followed. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat, and it began to fill with water. Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, shouting, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind, and he said to the waves, "Silence, be still." Suddenly the wind stopped, and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The disciples were absolutely terrified. "Who is this man?" they asked each other. "Even the wind and the waves obey him." So after a full day of teaching, Jesus tells his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." Obviously, he's probably tired and just wants to get away from the crowd. They set sail across the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus, exhausted, falls asleep in the stern of the boat. Suddenly, a fierce storm arises. The waves crash all over the boat, and the disciples, many of whom were already experienced fishermen, they're terrified. Water is pouring in, and they feel like they're about to sink. So in their panic, they wake Jesus and they cry out, "Teacher, don't you care that we're about to die?" It's a raw, desperate moment. Jesus, who is undisturbed by all of this, he gets up, he rebukes the wind and commands the seas, telling them, "Peace, be still." Immediately, the storm just stops. Everything just stops. And then, of course, he turns to the disciples and asks, "Why are you afraid?" And they're left speechless. Like, they don't understand what just happened. There was this raging storm going on. Jesus speaks a word, and then everything stops. Now, this story can remind us that fear often blinds us to the presence of Jesus. Jesus was on the boat with them the entire time, but they still felt like they were going to die. The disciples let the storm shake them, even though Jesus was right there with them. But how often do we do the same? We're people as well. We're no different from the disciples. I'm sure there could be something going on in your life and you're thinking, "God, where are you? Like, Jesus, don't you see what's going on? Like, why is this going on? Like, I'm going to die." We can panic in life storms, forgetting that Jesus is ultimately in control. He knows what's going on. The question is, do we trust him even when it feels like he's silent? Are we going to believe that Jesus is in the boat with me and all I have to do is call on him and I'm going to be safe? So now we're going to jump into Mark 5, jumping into the story where Jesus casts out a legion of demons. This is going to be Mark 5, verses 1 through 20. So after calming the storm, Jesus and his disciples arrived in the region of Gerasenes. Don't quote me on that pronunciation. The moment they step onto the shore, a wild, demon-possessed man runs towards them. This man is feared by his entire community. He lives on the outskirts, among the tombs. He's crying out day and night, cutting himself. He's completely uncontrollable, untamable. They've had him chained before, but they couldn't hold him. The people had completely given up on him. But Jesus doesn't run away. Instead, he confronts the evil head on. The demons inside the man actually recognize Jesus and cry out, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Don't torment us." They beg actually not to be sent away from this man. Jesus asks, "What is your name?" And the demons reply, "Legion, for we are many." A Roman legion had thousands of soldiers, meaning that this man was under the influence of countless demonic forces. But every knee must bow to the name of Jesus. So the demons beg to be sent into a herd of pigs nearby, and Jesus goes ahead and grants their request. And the moment that they enter the pigs, the entire herd, which was probably thousands, rushes off a cliff and drowns in the sea. The man is set completely free. Now, when the townspeople hear what happened, they come running. But instead of rejoicing, they become afraid. They see the man, now clothed and in his right mind, this man that they feared for who knows how long. And instead of celebrating his healing, they beg Jesus to leave. Imagine being in such a fright that you see a miracle and immediately think to run. But Jesus will leave. And as he prepares to leave, the man begs to go with him. But Jesus tells him, "Go home to your people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you." And that's exactly what he does. He becomes the first missionary to the Gentiles. Now, the most hopeless man in the region became a testimony of God's power. The same Jesus who calmed the storm also had the authority over spiritual darkness. And today, that same Jesus is still freeing people from chains they thought they could never be broken. No one is too far gone for God. And lastly, we're going to touch on 2 miracles. Jesus heals a woman and raises a dead girl. All of this happening at the same time. This happens in Mark 5, verse 21 through 43. So as Jesus crosses back over to the other side of the lake, a desperate father named Jairus, a synagogue leader, falls at his feet. He's saying that his little girl is dying, and he's asking Jesus to come and lay hands on her so that she can live. And Jesus does agree to go with him, but as they make their way through the crowd, something unexpected happens. There was a woman who had been suffering from bleeding for 12 years, and she was trying to get to Jesus as well, just trying to get her healing. And she reaches out and she touches Jesus' robe. She has spent years, all of her money on doctors, just trying to find a cure, but nothing helped. In fact, she only got worse. But she believed, if I just touch his clothes, if I just touch the hem of his garment, I can be healed. And the moment she does, the bleeding stops, and she knows that she is healed. But what's even more peculiar is that Jesus suddenly stops. He asks, "Who touched me?" Now that can be a confusing statement, and the disciples were definitely confused because there's a huge crowd pressing in. Anybody could have touched him. Everybody was probably touching him. But Jesus insisted, and he kept looking. And the woman, knowing that she had been healed, she came forward and she fell before him to tell her story. Jesus doesn't rebuke her. Instead, he says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." But at that moment, messengers arrive from Jairus' house, and they unfortunately report that his daughter is dead. They say, "Don't bother the teacher anymore. There's nothing that can be done." Imagine the heartbreak. Imagine the sadness in that moment that you literally witness another miracle on the way to yours, and it seems like it's not going to happen. But Jesus turns to Jairus and says, "Don't be afraid. Just believe." The situation can look dead, but you just got to believe. When they arrive at the house, mourners are already there weeping. And Jesus, he tells them, "Child is not dead, but asleep. There's no reason to mourn." And they laugh at him. But Jesus, he takes a few of his disciples, along with Jairus and the girl's mother, and they go into the room. He takes the child by the hand and says, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Instantly, she rises and begins to walk around. And the parents are, of course, overwhelmed and amazed at the miracle. This moment can show us that Jesus is never too late. Even when it seems like all hope is lost, he has the final say. Jairus' daughter was dead, but death could not stand in the presence of Jesus. The woman with the issue of blood had suffered for years, but one touch from Jesus can change everything. Don't stop believing just because the situation looks impossible, for we serve a God of the impossible. So for your question of reflection, what in your life seems like it's impossible? what seems like it's too far gone, that you're just going to have to live with it forever, that you don't know how you're even going to live this way with this thing. Can I encourage you that God is able to do anything? The word says that he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think, and that's Ephesians 3:20. You are not too far gone from God. So I want you to reflect and see what that situation is and pray over it. In these stories, we were able to see Jesus' power over nature, demons, sickness, and even death itself. But beyond his power, we see his love. He met people in their most desperate moments, and he still does that today. So let me ask, what storm in your life needs Jesus' peace? What chains need to be broken? What situation feels hopeless? And I want you to remember that Jesus is Lord over all. Thank you for joining me on By Grace Through Faith. I'll see you next time. Bye.